All right. Leviticus chapter 4, if you want to open up there. We last saw Leviticus chapter 3, and all this Torah reading, the beginning of Leviticus, is all about the offerings and the sacrifice and what they're made for, what particularly each one consists of. And this week's Torah is the beginning of Leviticus 1:1 to 5:19. And on chapter 4 of Leviticus, we read now. And Yah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the sons of Israel, saying, when a person sins against any of the commands of Yah, though through ignorance, which is not to be done, and shall do any of them, if the person who is anointed sins, resulting in guilt to the people, then he shall bring near for his sin which he has sinned a bull, a son of a herd, without blemish to Yah, for a sin offering. He shall bring the bull into the opening of the tabernacle of the congregation before the face of Yah, and he shall lay his hand on the head of the bull, and shall slaughter the bull before the face of Yah. Verse 5. And the priest who is anointed shall take some of the blood of the bull, and shall bring it to the tabernacle of the congregation. So now I'm going to stop here one moment and say we're talking about animals, but more important, we're talking about the blood. And Yah established from the beginning about the blood. And the Bible is all about the blood. The blood belongs to Yah, and the blood of Yahshua covers us. And intermediately, the animal's blood will be there to atone for us until the Messiah Yeshua came, and his blood was our ultimate atonement. Hallelujah. Verse 6, and the priest shall dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle some of the blood 7 times before the face of Yah and the front of the veil of the holy place. And the priest shall put some of the blood on the horns of the altar of the sweet incense and the opening of the tent of the congregation before the face of Yah. May we all understand the significance of blood, with Yah establishing it all the way at the beginning. It belongs to him. This is why it says we shall not eat the blood. Verse 8, and all the fat of the bulls and the sin offering he shall lift up, the fat which is covering over the inward parts, and all the fat which is on the inward parts, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat which is on them, which is on the flanks, he shall remove the lobes, and the liver besides the kidneys. And we read verse 10. As it is raised up from the sacrifice of the peace offerings of the bull, the priest shall burn them as incense on the altar of burnt offerings. And the skin of the bull and all its flesh, with its head, with its legs, and with the inner parts and its dung, he shall bring out the bull to the outside of the camp, to a clean place, to the place of pouring of ashes. And he shall pour it on the wood fire, and it shall be burned as the place of pouring ashes. If all the company of Israel shall sin through ignorance, and the thing has been hidden from the eyes of the assembly, and they do that which is not to be done, to any of all the commands of Yah, and are guilty, when the sin shall be known, that which they have sinned against it, then the congregation shall bring near a bull, a son of the herd, for a sin offering, and they shall bring it in the front of the tabernacle of the congregation. And the elders of the congregation shall lay their hands on the head of the bull before the face of Yah, and they shall slaughter the bull before the face of Yah. And the priest who is anointed shall bring in some of the blood of the bull to the tabernacle of the congregation. And the priest shall dip his finger in the blood of it and shall sprinkle it 7 times before the face of Yah at the front of the veil. And he shall put some of the blood on the horns of the altar before the face of Yah in the tent of the meeting of the congregation. And he shall pour out all the blood at the base of the altar of a burnt offering and of the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Verse 19. And he shall lift up all its fat from it, and shall burn it as incense on the altar. And he shall do with the bull as he has done to the bull of the sin offering, so he shall do it. And the priest shall atone for them, and it shall be forgiven for them. Hallelujah. Verse 21. And he shall bring the bull to the outside of the camp, and he shall burn it as a burned in the first bull. It is a sin offering with sin offering of the congregation. Verse 22. When a ruler sins and has acted against one of the commands of Yah, his Elohim, which is not to be done, through ignorance, and is guilty, or his sin which has sinned shall not be made known to him, then he shall bring his offerings, a buck of the goats, a male without blemish, and he shall lay his hand on the head of the he-goat and she-goat, and shall slaughter it in the place where the slaughters are burnt offerings, before the face of Yah. It is a sin offering. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering with the finger, he shall put it on the horns of the altar of a burnt offering, and he shall pour out its blood in the base of the altar of the burnt offering. Now we need to remember this. These sacrifices are for the sins of ignorance, not defiance to Yah's word. Yah says there's no sacrifice for a willful sin. And there had to be restitution for the sin that was done as well. So if the sin was done on ignorance or on purpose, there were still consequences. But there was no sacrifice for the willful sin. But Yah was all about sacrifice for those that sinned with ignorance. And we look at the blood covering and atoning. And then we think forward to Yeshua. And we read verse 26, and he shall burn it as incense on the altar with all its fat, the fat of the sacrifice of the peace offerings, and the priest shall atone for him because of his sin, and it shall be forgiven him. And if any person of the people of the land sin through ignorance, by doing that which is not to be done against one of the commands of Yah, and is guilty, or his sin which has sinned shall be made known to him, then he shall bring his offering of an ewe of the goats, without blemish, a female, for his sin which has sinned, he has sinned. Then he shall lay his hand on the head of the sin offering, and shall slaughter the sin offering in the place of the burnt offering. And the priest shall take some of the blood with his finger, and shall put it on the horns of the altar of the burnt offering, and shall pour out all of its blood at the base of the altar. And he shall take off all its fat, as it has been taken off the sacrifice of the peace offering. And the priest shall burn it as an incense on the altar, a soothing fragrance to Yah, and the priest shall atone for him, and it is forgiven him. And if he brings a lamb as to his offering, a female without blemish, he shall bring it. And he shall lay his hand on the head of the sin offering, and he shall slaughter it for a sin offering in the place where he slaughters the burnt offering. Verse 34. And the priest shall take some of the blood of the sin offering, which is his finger, and he shall put it on the horns of the altar of the burnt offering, and he shall pour out the blood at the bottom of the altar. And he shall take off all its fat as it's taken off from the fat of the lamb, the sacrifice of the peace offering, and the priest shall burn them as burn them as incense on the altar, on the fire offerings of Yahweh. And the priest shall atone for him and for his sin which has sinned, and forgiven him. Now, the note here says, as we close out the Torah, there's a difference between forgiveness and restitution. This is the difference between the Passover, forgiveness, and the Day of Atonement, restitution. Although forgiveness is given, there still has to be restitution according to the Torah to pay the penalty for what was lost. Much of the Torah lays out these judgments depending on what the particular sin was. And if it was a crime that brought capital punishment, then only the principle of the life for life could apply. This is why there was no salvation in the first covenant, and why Yeshua had to come and die to pay the life sentence for the sin of all those who believe in his sacrifice. There we go. That is the beginning of that is chapter 4 of the book of Leviticus. As we read the Torah for this coming Shabbat, hallelujah. Thank you, Father Yah. May you all have eyes to see and ears to hear. May we have an understanding of your Torah. Thank you, Father Yah.